Looking forward to hearing from Mayor Usha Reddi for all she has to say. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. This is one of my first times to do this, and I think it'll be kind of fun. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, this is, Usha Reddi, that's how you spell my name. Sometimes people spell it with a Y, but my name is with an I for Reddi. That's my contact from the city of Manhattan as far as an email address. My Gmail is wrong because I forgot my initials. It's not just 12345@gmail.com. There is a ULR, not URL, ULR for Usha Lakshmi Reddi. Those are my initials. ULR 12345@gmail.com, and also on Twitter for @Reddi_Usha. So if you're on social media, please tap into it and see what's going on in the community. So with that said, so let me tell you about my journey first, how I got here, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my impressions as far as leaders or leadership, and we'll open it up for questions from there. I hope not to talk for too long. So I came to the United States in 1973 to Ohio. I was 8 years old. I have 2 younger brothers. My father, at that time, they were recruiting physicians to the United States. So he was doing his residency. He came to Youngstown, Ohio. He came in 1972, and the rest of us came in 1973. My mother has a 5th grade education. We were all in a village. We were raised in a village, basically. But when we knew when my dad was going to be coming here, we tried to learn English. So boarding schools are very common in India. So I was in a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school, and this is not out of the norm. It was supposed to be one of the best educations. So when you're that young, it was hard for me to pick up on English as quickly. I was trying to learn English before I came to the United States. So by the time I came to the United States, I just knew a little bit about the alphabet, but I didn't know English. So I started 3rd grade in Youngstown, Ohio, not knowing hardly any English. We were in a, kind of like how you have Jardine, there was a Indian campus. Most of the houses there were Indian physicians with their families, and it was a nice little group to be a part of, because then my mom and everybody else got assimilated with each other and got acquainted with the culture. From there, we moved a little bit, but basically stayed in Ohio. I grew up in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. I went to Ohio State University, got a bachelor's in developmental psychology. At that time, my ex-husband received his degree in civil engineering from Ohio State. We moved here to Kansas after a few other places we went for his job. The university gave him a job as a professor here. Later, he went on to be department head. We raised our 3 children, Ravi, Sri, and Santi, in Kansas. They did their K-12 education here. During that time, I was a stay-at-home mom for about 15 to 16 years, doing odd jobs. And some of those odd jobs got me into the schools, and one of the principals there suggested I go back and get an education degree. So I have an elementary education degree from Kansas State University, and got a job at Ogden Elementary School where I taught 1st grade. And then I went on to get my master's in leadership at K-State in the College of Ed. So that's a little bit about my background as far as my education and how I ended up here. So I wasn't always in politics. It just happened to have fallen my way through other opportunities I've had. So I'm not sure how to get to the next slide on this. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is kind of what I wanted to show you. I'm not big into PowerPoint, so I only have 3 slides. The first one you already saw, so this is my second slide. So public servant is basically what I am as mayor. And some of the things that got me here, opportunities. I always believe don't pass up any opportunity that comes your way. And I think, I became a naturalized citizen in 1987. And when you have to take a test and become part of the country that you have now adopted, it's, for me anyway, it was a lot more meaningful. So I took part in a lot more activities that were going on around me. And if somebody wanted me to be on some committee or in some organization, I definitely took advantage of it. When I moved here with my children, I think because I grew up in the United States, I was also very much wanted a lot of Americans within my group for my children. Most Indians or any cultural group tends to go with their own group because it's their comfort zone. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I felt comfortable in both areas as far as Indians and Americans. So my kids were exposed to all of that. So several of the opportunities that came my way, for example, when I was a teacher, I signed up for all kinds of leadership positions because I also was part of the NEA for the National Education Association. And as I was signing up, somebody saw me tapping into everything, and they said, well, maybe you should be president of our local union. I was vice president for a couple of years and later became president of the union. I didn't know union was bad or there was a bad connotation to it at the time. It just felt like it was the right thing to do if you're working towards working conditions for teachers and making the working environment for your students better. So that's something I took on, and one of the things that went from there was I felt people needed to be more engaged to get rid of that negative connotation. So I called a radio station, made partnerships with our radio station. So I was on the radio every other week talking about things they can do that would be beneficial to their children, instead of talking about funding or talking about how little teachers get paid or all the challenges we're going through. So those were some of the things that worked well for me. Then I went on to join League of Women Voters, joined the American Association for Women, joined all kinds of organizations and clubs, whatever there was, I was on it. During this time, I also went through a divorce. So after about 20 years, I got divorced, and here I am with my 3 kids and not knowing what to do and trying to find an identity. You know, when you're married to somebody for that long, you kind of adopt somebody else's identity for a little bit. So I was trying to find my own identity. So during that process, I went out of my comfort zone, joined things like Rotary, because I wasn't at all familiar with businesses. So they didn't invite me. I just went and said, hey, are you looking for members? Join the Rotary. And I did that for a lot of the other organizations that were out there, which really helped me in the long run. So as I was going through this process of trying to find myself and see what I wanted to do, sometimes when you're raising children at home, some things that, you know, I wasn't checking their backpacks, making sure they were done with their homework or anything nearly as much. But I think what happened was that gave them a little bit of independence, made me realize that there's nothing as failure. If they made a mistake, they can figure it out, problem solve. And that worked for me as I went along. During this time, I wanted to also grow professionally. And to be mayor now is very different. I've applied for so many things that I didn't get, and then there were some really great successes. So opportunities that came up for jobs, for example, I must have applied to 15, 20 jobs, had interviews, always came in second. So I wasn't that one that got the job, which was kind of frustrating at first, but you learn from all your experiences as you go. There was a Board of Education, State Board of Education position came open. So I filed to run for office at that time. That was in 2012. And it was a 23 county project, 23 county area. And nobody knew me. And I sent out postcards. And then I realized, I put things like, oh, I'm ESL endorsed and things of that sort. And I realized in Kansas, people, if they just see your postcard and they see someone like me with a bindi on their forehead saying ESL endorsed, that's not going to make them want to vote for me. So I thought, okay, I need to join every parade, knock on as many doors as I can. And that was wonderful. It was a great experience for me because the greatest barrier was the unknown. Once people got to know me, they knew I wasn't a threat. They felt comfortable. They felt I was sincere, that maybe they can trust me, that I would work hard for them. But that had to come with me going to them. They weren't going to come to me, see what I was about. You have to reach out to people to make sure they understand what you're talking about or where you stand on issues. And you may not agree all the time, but that definitely opens up communication for both ways. So that was great. I lost that election. I had 47%. My opponent had 53. But then I thought, okay, I was devastated for a little bit. Then I got over it. I moved on. And then somebody said, well, you should run for city commission. You keep coming to some of our meetings. Why don't you try doing that while your name is still hot and people still know you? So I ran for that position. And fortunately, I was successful getting onto the city commission. So what are some of the qualities people look for? And some of these I have learned along the way, and some of them maybe came through me. I didn't realize I had. For example, being sincere and genuine. And I think people, even if when I'm teaching first grade right now, I teach third and fifth grade math because I teach till about 11:30 at Ogden, and then I do my Merrill stuff the rest of the day. But even first graders, even kindergartners know when you're faking it. They know when you're lying. They know when you're not sincere. They know when you're making it up. And so do adults. It's an easy read. So if they can trust me, I felt like I'm easier when I don't have to fake something. And it's easier for them to understand. Another one was, am I honest? Do I make it up, or am I just trying to agree with them for the sake of agreeing? I think honesty is extremely important. What I realized is, even with the 4 commissioners I have with me, that when we make our decisions, it's just like when I'm talking to parents during parent-teacher conferences. How do you tell them your child is not doing as well as they should? And be honest about it, but still give them something to take away. And I've learned that as a teacher mainly, that you can actually say, your child is doing this, this, and this is what we need to work on. I was able to take that to anything. For example, if we're going to be talking about rental inspections tonight. We just passed a LGBT ordinance a few months ago. We just did budgeting for the airport. There will be lots of people who are going to say, well, I don't like it when you do this. It bugs me. Why do you keep putting more regulations? This is our taxpayer money. And if you break it down and say, I understand you don't agree with me, but this is what it's going to go for. And we don't have to do anything right now, but eventually we might have to. And keep open mind that maybe you're wrong. Maybe it's something, don't already go in with this mind of, I'm right, I know they're going to hate this. And if you keep your ears open and really listen, there are some takeaways from somebody who doesn't agree with you. There's a truth in what they're saying. And if you can take their truth and adapt it to a certain policy, it makes it more bearable. And then that's where the honesty comes in. Did you really hear them? Are you able to repeat back what they said with some form of understanding? And will you work hard for them? Are you going to work hard, not just for yourself or just to get your name out there? Are you going to work hard on the issues? Even if we don't agree, are you going to put in the hours? Are you going to put in the time? Are you going to go to meetings? Are you going to answer my phone call? Are you going to answer my emails? And that's going to show in your work ethic. And people notice that as well. When you show up to things that people don't expect you to show up at, that's meaningful. One of the examples is the GOP had their convention here. Their state convention. They wanted the mayor there. I didn't know how they were going to receive me, and I'm sure they didn't know much about me. They just wanted the mayor. So I went there, and it was awkward at first. But again, when you represent 58,000 people in a community, you represent everybody. And it was a wonderful session. We had great conversations. I left. It wasn't as though you're already going in angry. Anytime you go away angry, you're probably going to leave a little angry. If you go in with a little bit of open-mindedness to see what's going to happen, you might be amazed at the outcome. It's all in your frame of mind. And then they realize, yeah, she will work hard or she won't work hard. That you can't change. You can't change their perception. All you can do is give your best and hope for the best at that point. Passion. I have a lot of passion for what I do. I have passion as I was a mom. Still continue to, because I still have children. So I'm very passionate about my children, about teaching. I love what I do as a teacher, and I love being a public servant in the community. People see that, and I think passion is when you can speak from the heart. You're not just rattling off numbers here and there. You're just not rambling out facts or obvious statements, but passion is there depending on the topic you're talking about, and then not giving into somebody else's angst about your passion. You don't have to be defensive about it. You can be passionate and open-minded at the same time. And character matters. People do, with social media out there, people do look at Facebook, look at Twitter, look at Instagram, whatever you have out there, and they will make a judgment. And it'll be an immediate judgment, and you can't change it that quickly. So I think character, they see character in a variety of ways. It's not just in your newspaper or magazines anymore, but it's everywhere out there. So you have to, when you lead by example, is one of the things I believe anyway. Engagement. Keeping people informed. One of my platforms was 3 things, actually. Keeping the community engaged, building on the partnerships that we have, and also mental health was a huge deal for me. So when I talk about engaging people, I've opened myself up to the schools so I can go in and talk to them about what a mayor does or what a leader does or what goes on in the community, because most kids don't know. We talk about engineers, we expose them to doctors, we expose them to all kinds of other fields, but we don't really expose them to local government or any other type of government. And then they're shocked because they don't know what voting means, and we're shocked when they don't vote. So that's one thing that I've been thrilled about, is going to schools and talking in schools. The social media aspect has helped a lot. I post my agendas every day, every week that they're coming out, or if I've been to an event, let them know about it, what's going on in the community. A lot of people know there's a lot of things going on in the community, but they don't know when it's happening, and they're shocked after it's done, or oh, I didn't realize it was happening. I would have liked to have gone. Nobody told me about it. So one of my jobs is to keep them engaged, and things like this help. Going to your student government association, talking to them, letting them know, hey, we're having rental inspection tonight. Why don't you come and join us, see what your perspective is on this topic. Whatever topic it is, try to keep them involved in the process. They don't have to show up, but they should at least have the opportunity to say no, or I can't make it, or yeah, I knew about that. I don't want people to say, well, I didn't know, because then you feel like you haven't really done your job as well as you should. K-State, Fort Riley, USD 383, and our local chamber and businesses. Try to keep them very much in communication with everything that's going on in the community. They're our partners, and regardless of what anybody else sees out there, they'll see your public elected official at events. And they want to partner up with you, whether it's about economic development, whether it's about workforce, whether it's about finances of any kind, or just projects. Maybe it's about collecting food for the Manhattan shelter or something like that. You have to make sure those are going on and on and on, that you don't put a barrier to saying no. It's easy to say no to things that just because you don't have time, you have to make time. I think my husband will probably tell you, there's no end to my day. There's no end. I start probably at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and tries to get me some hobbies, but I'm not very good at hobbies. I've tried to adopt some hobbies. I haven't been good at recreation or relaxing very well just yet. So I work till about 10 or 11, but I love what I do. It doesn't really feel like work to me. I feel like, oh, let me do that, let me do that. I don't feel stressed. And there's a good stress and a bad stress. This stress doesn't make me lose sleep at night. I sleep very well at the end of my day. Brian got me a drum set so I can practice and have a hobby. That lasted for about a month or two. I'm trying to go back in the basement and play my drum set, but at the same time, my mind is always on, I really should be doing this, I really should be doing that. But I love what I do. So I think there's something to be said for being a workaholic or having a passion and just doing something because you have to get it done because there's a deadline. I haven't had that feeling yet, fortunately. So that's part of where the engagement piece comes in for me. Introspection. You have to reflect. You have to reflect a lot. And it's not necessarily second guessing. So when I mean about reflecting, after we make some kind of a budget decision, I often go home and see if I did do it right. Can we tweak it a little bit more? Are we sure we're using the taxpayers' money appropriately? Did I speak to people that wanted to talk to me that night? Is there somebody I said I was going to call back? Make sure I go back through my emails, make sure I reach out to them. I have to continuously go through my emails and make sure I'm keeping myself on tap. I have plenty of weaknesses. I can't remember names. People, I see them in so many things. Some of them I may have even had dinner with, and they know me and they come and talk to me and they expect me to know them, and I feel awful inside, and I just say hello and try to have a conversation. So that's something I definitely need to work on, is remembering names, especially when we're making decisions for other people and they want to have that conversation with me. I'm not good at remembering every single number that we've discussed, because people will say, well, how much was this? Or how much did you spend on that? And I don't have a great memory. I wish I did, but I don't. So oftentimes I can refer them back to something and make sure I know who to go to for that. So I feel happy that at least I know where to give them a contact information without having to rattle off a bunch of stuff. And I try to give myself 24 hours before I react to something I totally hate. So if I get an email and it gets me angry or really ticked off, or if somebody posts something elsewhere, or if I hear something and they're expecting a response from me, I try to give myself 24 hours. That way I need to cool down. I don't want to be reactionary, and I want it to be positive, or at least keep a working conversation going. And that's very hard to do. because your email is right there sitting in front of you, and inside you're thinking, I really should do this, I really should do this, I really should do this. And I've often had my children, I have a daughter in Indianapolis, she's doing her pediatric residency. I have a son in UMKC, he's finishing off his med school this year, and I have a son in New York. But media is everywhere, and I'll get text messages from them that day or something, and they'll say, Mom, what are you going to do about this? Why don't you say something? I said, nope, I'm just going to wait. And they're like, no, do something. So they want that reaction right there. They want you to be passionate about it. But when you represent an entire community, you need to take the entire community into consideration when you're going to be vocal about something. And you have to be, like I said, patient and flexible with what's going on out there, not react as other people may want you to react. So those are some things that I do on a daily basis. But I'm going to open it up for questions, and please throw anything you have at me, and I'll see where we can go from here.
I'll start running the mic around, and then feel free. Look at who has their hand up next.
Jonathan.
Run it to them so that, I'm not running.
Anything goes.
What was the opposition to the LGBT ordinance that was passed recently?
Okay. Well, there was one originally a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was one, and it had really strict penalties and a huge process for taking it to court and having a human rights commission and all of that. This time around, it wasn't as punitive, let's say, but there was quite a bit of opposition. It took us almost a year and a half to get it passed. The opposition was, of course, some of it was reading out of the Bible and saying this isn't acceptable. But the incredible force that happened behind it passing this time was the room was always packed with people that wanted this to happen. It was packed with clergy. It was packed with lots of pastors, and they're talking about it. It was packed with people that were very young. We had a young man who was maybe 18 or 19, and our meeting started at 7. He came out at 10 because we were still discussing it, and he said, I was watching you on TV, and I thought I needed to come down. And he came there, and he said, I know 21 people that died in the past year because of this, and I hope you do something about it. So things like that really touched people. And I think we made the process such that, and I've talked to people, and they were surprised, they would call me and say, I need to talk to you about, and these were people on the opposition side. And when we sat down and talked, one of the gentlemen who wanted to talk to me, his son was also gay. But he definitely was not for this ordinance that we were discussing. So he said, my son's gay. I just don't think this is necessary. It doesn't need to happen. They just need to live with what's going on. And I looked at him and I said, you're right. The fact that they do need to live with what's going on, but your son is very lucky to have you. You're there for your son. Other sons are not as lucky. Other sons may not have a family that's there for them. They may kick them out. You don't know. Their society might not accept them. All we're doing is changing a policy. We're not changing society. And there's a difference. As a community, one of our jobs is to keep everybody safe. And this falls under that umbrella. We can't change the way people think. We can't change what they do out there, but we can make it safer. And I think that resonated with him. So the next time around, he didn't speak up as much. And this is a gentleman that speaks out at a lot of things at our committee meetings. So I think that touched him a little bit, and he understood where I was coming from. So I hope that answered it. Other questions? Otherwise, I can ramble on.
I just have a question. With the continued growth in Manhattan and for what's to come, is there a plan for preserving the historical districts or historical areas of Manhattan? Because I know some zoning regulations have changed, I don't know, in the past couple of years. And so I was curious, is there a plan to keep those specific areas preserved as opposed to having a historical home next to an apartment complex, or just...
Right.
Is there a plan for that?
Yeah. Yes, there is actually. And we have a great, community that enjoys the historic preservations that we have in place we have plenty of them that are on the historic register. So, and that's exactly what we're looking at. We have a comprehensive plan where, because the growth of the city is changing so much for high density and low density, and seeing where we want apartment complexes, where we want businesses, and where we want residential areas. As we look through all of that, we want to keep the historical components in place. And I think we're doing a good job of that, and we have a great committee in place that looks through all of that. One of the things with the historic components is keeping everything as it was. And you can't, I think there's something to be, you can demolish them, but it has to be written there somewhere that you can or cannot. But that's one of our priorities. That came up at one of our goal settings, is to make sure we're taking care of our community. The thing that makes Manhattan wonderful for the people that live here is the historic component of it, that it is not growing like Manhattan and New York. It's not going to be just another city. There is some culture to it. There's a certain ambiance about Manhattan. There's a certain family involved in Manhattan, and we like to see that. And it also goes with green space at the same time. We want to keep the green space and preserve some of our historical homes and structures, and also keep them up to date so they're not falling apart. So that is on our table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just curious, as an immigrant, what type of leadership challenges did you have adapting here to, for lack of a better term, Central America, right?
Yes.
You know, what type of things did you experience, maybe, that you had to overcome, and how you did it?
Sure. And each one has their own personal experience, so I'm not going to be general about it, but from my personal experience, I think being naive helped me in a way. I was not sure about Kansas. So, when I was raised in Youngstown, Ohio, we always just hung out with Indians. And that was my only thing, Indians. I only knew Indians. I didn't know many Americans. We didn't have family dinners with other American families. So it was always Indian this and Indian that. So that kind of sheltered me a little bit. So when I came to Kansas, I was raising children, so I was not as involved in the community at the time. But I noticed, for example, when I speak about jobs, I applied to, I got my teaching degree. I applied for 2 administrative positions in USD 383. I applied for at least 4 or 5 jobs at K-State and some other jobs. And I always came in second. And I can, say, well, that's because I'm Indian or whatever it might be. I don't know that I can say that. But I will say I work at Ogden, and every time my job shifted, so now I'm Title I math. I was a preschool teacher. I was a community learning center curriculum coordinator. Then I became a pre-K teacher. Then I got into being a first grade teacher, and then I was a co-teacher. So I had like 6 different titles, but my principal was Jim Armendariz, and he's from Mexico. So if he can hire me 6 times and I can't get a job anywhere else, I can't figure that out. It could be because there are other candidates. I don't know. So that's something that I had to just come to terms with. But that makes me also not give up, because I feel like, I need to represent populations and make sure that they keep working at it. And I think that's something I take very seriously. For my children, I think, you always, I think when you're a minority, again, for myself, they wanted to be in sports. They wanted to be in soccer and baseball and softball. And we did that all right till about 3rd or 4th grade. And we are very much into education. That's it. B in my home was considered bad. And so you had to get A's all the time. And that's just the way it was. And the reason it was like that, we pulled them out of sports by 6th grade. I was driving them around everywhere. There were 3 different children, 3 different soccer teams. And I was going around. We didn't have dinner till 8 or 9. And my ex-husband at the time said, we have to stop this. And he sat the kids down and he said, none of you have the physical talent to be soccer players. You're not going to get a scholarship. You're not going to get anything. You're going to have a good time. But your grades are the only things you have. And there's going to be tons of competition out there. And they can be in soccer and they can be in football, and they're still going to get in school and do whatever they want, even if they have a B or a C. You don't have that standard. The standard is much higher, so you're going to have to drop out of all of these sports. They cried and they whined and everything like that. And then they went on. And, they're, successful now. But when I hear my kids talk now, they think we were too easy because they see the competition out there and they see what they have to face. We've always told them, we don't have a network. We don't have relatives. We don't have people in positions that can hire you or that can vouch for your character. You only have you, and you only have that one sheet of resume. That's all you have. We don't know anybody else. We don't have contacts for you. So that's kind of how I was raised, and that's how I have gone through some of these things. When I say I ran for office and I lost, when I have to make myself more accessible, that's true. But that doesn't mean, I also don't want to indicate anything like somebody is being, considering me something less. I think there's just, if you know somebody like Cindy and your aunt happens to be Cindy, there's already a familiarity there, as opposed to knowing a Usha. So there's some challenges, and I wear my bindi everywhere I go. I wasn't very affectionate about my bindi when I was growing up because I wanted to fit in so badly with high school kids. But as I got older, I decided a bindi is part of who I am, and it's non-threatening. It's just who I am. And when I walk into places and they see this, I like that. I like being a little different and knowing that it's okay to be different. So there are a few challenges, but I think if you have a good support system and come back to someone who's also supportive of your goals, that's a big player in how you become. I hope I answered it, but roundabout way.
I have an arts-based question. So I'm someone that gets out and really enjoys all of the wonderful aspects of living in Manhattan. I think I've walked every trail on the linear trail and do so frequently, and took hot chocolate to Blue Stem Bistro during the holidays. And I love that the blue lights are still up on Main Street, and the holidays are over, sort of, I think. And I am involved in art education here at K-State, and I find myself thinking that we've got so many great components to this city. I think we need some community art spaces. Like Blue Stem Bistro is beautiful. I love going down there. Blue Earth Plaza. Yeah, there's so many blues in this town. I like going down there. But there are small communities all over this country that have brought outdoor public art spaces into the communities, whether it's like take Lindsborg, Kansas, where they have the Dala horses all out on the sidewalk.
We were there a few months ago.
Yes, I think Lawrence, Kansas has even made a list of the best small arts communities in the country. But anyway, it's just something that's on my mind as I move around the city, and I think, oh gosh, a sculpture would be really cool here, or an outdoor mural would be really cool here. And I think because I come from the arts world, I think that I know that a sense of pride in your community also comes from those sorts of things. And I just wondered, is there anything on the back burner?
There are, actually. We have a great committee and advisory board for the arts and humanities for Manhattan. And that's where we got the Carnation, the sculptor, for the roundabout near downtown. No, not downtown, by Walgreens, I think. And that is something we're looking at. We have lots of buildings that they want murals painted on them to display work. We have the Manhattan Arts Center we're trying to work with a little bit more also. And that committee is working on putting out more art festivals. And, but when you have a blues music festival or an Irish music festival or whatever it is, there are a lot of artists in town and who want to participate in that. And I think those are some of the things we want to have display more often in our community. And they are working on a few of those components. The high school is working on some of those components as well. But you're absolutely right. We have much more diversity in our art that we're not taking advantage of. And I think that's something we need to put more money into. And it always comes down to funding, but that's something we do want to dive deeper into. And I think this commission is ready for something like that. And feel more than welcome to join one of our advisory boards. We have plenty of them and always looking for volunteers.
So I have a question for the class, and I'm going to let Usha have a moment to drink some water. So I was really impressed with one of the ways that you, a skill or strategy that you have for managing yourself, which is when you get triggered, you give yourself 24 hours before you respond. So turn to each other, and so obviously not just turn to your right, because then everybody's looking down. So turn to each other and think about, what do you do? What are some of the skills or strategies that you have when you have been triggered and you need to manage yourself in order to be effective in being with somebody else? So what's a skill that you use, or a strategy that you use to kind of hold it together so that you can be effective? Because we know that everybody wants a reaction.
Oh, yeah.
We
And they want
expect
it
a
quick.
reaction,
Yeah.
but it's not always what's going to serve your purpose, right? So just take a minute and talk to each other about how you manage your triggers. Okay, so does anyone have anything that they are willing to share? We'll just hear from a couple of folks, and then we'll turn it back over to Usha and any questions you might have for her. No one wants to share. It's a secret.
Oh, there's one over there.
Is have a beer acceptable in the moment? Hey, it depends on where you are, I guess. It's environmental cues there. Yes, Joseph.
I was just going to say recreational activity like walking or going to the rec. And I just told Spencer it's usually before I'm on the verge of going crazy that I do that, because I'll feel it coming on and I'm like, okay, gotta go do something active, get this out of my system, and then kind of cool down from it. So.
To be honest, my parents, I talk to them a lot when things bother me. I found that they're a really good resource to have, and oftentimes they have a good solution, whether that's, advice or have a beer.
Also advice. Well, and sometimes it's being able to talk to kind of a non-involved party to test your ideas before actually engaging the person who may be triggering you. So mom, dad, good call. Good. I had a colleague whose response when he was confronted with particularly like a blatant racist remark or sexist remark or any kind of phobia, right? And it's right in front of his face. His response was always to say, "How fascinating." And because it just gave him a minute it gave him something to say. He had to say something. And it gave him something to say that wasn't judgmental, and that just gave him a minute to pull himself together and not just respond exactly how he wanted to respond. Anybody else? Well, how fascinating. Maggie, there you go.
I don't know if this is the best solution, but anytime I would get like just a joke thrown at me that was maybe sexist or just off color, I would just act really confused and be like, "I don't get it. Could you explain that to me?" And then they have to defend their terrible opinion, and that usually helps them rethink it.
All right, I believe that's shady. I mean, throwing of shade, not shady, but could be shady too, I guess.
Explain that to her.
So any other questions for Usha?
Yeah.
No, you're stretching.
Yeah.
Okay. Stretching also? We have some stretchy people. No?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll
Yeah, I have
some questions. Really? You don't have any?
Yeah.
That you can think of? Yeah. See?
So, yeah. I just wanted to add a couple of more things if I have time. Okay. So I just wanted to say, nobody mentioned Aggieville, but we know that's an outlet too. Aggieville is a wonderful outlet that we have in Manhattan. But I just came back from a law board meeting, and one of the topics we discussed was Fake Patty's Day. So, it has evolved along the way, and it has a mind of its own. It was never a city event, so I just wanted to remove that from anybody who says, well, they let us do it in Manhattan. No, we don't let you do it in Manhattan. It's just, it kind of took off on its own via social media and other business owners and things of that sort. But we have learned to contain it. So that means we have parameters, or we have lots of police officers within Aggieville. They're trying to make it more festive, like an event. They'll try to have more water out there, more food. So what they've noticed, though, was that, of course, and you probably already know this, is that it's happening more in the houses, in fraternity houses, sorority houses, house parties. They already drink there, and then they visit Aggieville. So this happens from like a Friday night or Friday afternoon onwards, and police officers, we use them from several counties, not just Riley County, Potawatomi County, Geary County, EMS, there's hundreds and hundreds of officers. What the report came out this afternoon was there's been an influx with drugs. We didn't used to have a drug problem before associated with Fake Patty's Day. So now drugs are a big deal in Manhattan, Kansas, especially during that weekend. And so they're trying to get more officers that are trained in drug inspections and what to do when you have drug-related incidences more than usual. And that's new to us because that's not our experience. We can say, because of Colorado's laws or whatever it might be, but it's not just Colorado. They're coming from Nebraska, from Texas, Oklahoma, even within our own region. So it's not just that I don't want to make it seem like outer-staters are doing this, but we see it more here. And I don't know if it's starting off in high schools and more people have become more open to it, but we're definitely seeing that on an uptick. As far as the binge drinking, I think we've confined it a little bit, but our EMS is loaded with lots of people that are on ER. So if you have a heart attack or if you're about to have a baby on that night, it's not good because you're probably going to be waiting. And that's not what our ER is for. But we have a lot of people that are having that near-death experience because of intoxication. And you need to deal with all of that at the same time. But if you see somebody out there, who needs help, reach out to them. Learn to drink. Social drinking is fine. You don't have to binge drink. Space it out. Drink lots and lots of water. And there are some things that happen, really bad things, sexual violence. Most people don't report it. That doesn't mean it's low. It's just not reported. So we've tried to have more lighting on that weekend so that it's bright and people know where they're walking or who's there, so nobody's creeping up on you or anything like that. Accidents happen. Nobody wants to be blamed for somebody else's behavior, especially if it has to do with alcohol. So just be cognizant of all of those issues that are taking place. And if you do feel violated or something has happened, find a safe person to talk to. Because if we don't know about it, we can't do much about it. And often if one or two people come out, there's usually more in the lines of what to do. So we're trying to work with our bar owners. We're trying to work with our businesses. We're trying to make it a safer place for everybody that's here because your parents expect us to do that. And it falls on us as a city to make sure we're taking care of everybody that's in the city of Manhattan. One of my other main initiatives is mental health. So in our community, we have lots of mental health challenges, especially with funding being cut at different levels. So our CPD and our city budget, we put forth some money to have 2 co-responders. And what these co-responders do is if there is a mental health incident that has come in conflict with law enforcement, we have somebody now who's trained how to deal with that situation, take them to a de-escalation place, because we don't want somebody that has a mental illness to have a conviction thing or anything else on their record and not be hired just because they didn't have a support system in place for those few days. So there's lots of things we're doing with K-State as well as NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, as far as the mental health initiative. So those are some things we are working on. But when we were talking about how do you find a way to calm yourself down, not everybody knows how. You would be surprised at how many people have not found a way how to calm themselves down. So life is a constant stress, constant struggle, constant time of trying to make decisions without having a calming mechanism of some sort. So hopefully you all find that spot, because I don't think there's a single one of you that's not a leader in this classroom. I think all of you probably do something in a leadership role in some organization, in your family, within the community. You're doing something. But not everybody has that. We're kind of an anomaly of sorts when you're going to a university. And what we've noticed is in high school, the graduation rate is increasing, but the number of percentage of students going to college has stayed the same. It's still only at like 20 or 30%. It has not increased with graduation rates. And there could be a whole variety of reasons like funding or whatever it might be. But not everybody's exposed to this. So I hope you take this out into the community and stay engaged. My email is not that. So it's ulr12345@gmail.com. So it was a pleasure talking to you this afternoon. If you would like me to do anything, or if you want to talk about other things or be on other committees, volunteer committees, we're always looking for people to be on those, just let me know. Okay, that's it. Thank you.